Now seriously, I do feel this gambit needs a lot of attention. I believe it's high time people begin to study this so-called Fianchetto gambit. Guys, this is more deadly than it looks at first sight. So you can also give it a try if you want to. And before I show you some new lines that I just discovered in the Queen F3 line, I just want to show you other gambits that are similar to the Mordern gambit so that I clear any doubts. The first one is the Danish gambit, guys. Of course, the Danish appears to be stronger and it goes like this. E4, E5, then you simply go pawn to D4, pawn takes, and then C3, again pawn takes, then you go bishop C4, allowing black to take your third pawn, after which you take back. In fact, I would say the Danish gambit is more riskier to play at beginner level cause, you're just down by 2 pawns. The only justification though is these two powerful bishops that makes the Danish to be a bit stronger than the Fianchetto gambit. The next gambit where we go berserk is the wing gambit that happens in the Sicilian defense where we go pawn to B4, then black takes, again we sacrifice a pawn, black takes, then you go bishop takes A3 if you want, waiting for pawn to E6 or pawn to E5 so that you can take black's bishop on F8 and make them lose their right to castle. Once again, in the wing gambit, you give up a pawn for activity just like in the Mordern gambit. And then we have the Benko gambit, which goes as follows. White starts with D4, then you go knight to F6, and after pawn to C4, you play C5, and the top played move from here is pawn to D5, after which you go pawn to B5. Finally, the Benko gambit. The idea is that if white takes, you give away another pawn, hoping them to take so that you can recapture with your bishop, again waiting for this pawn move in order to make white lose his right to castle. You're sacrificing a pawn for quick development and piece activity, just like what you do in the Mordern gambit. But it's just that the three gambits that I just showed you are considered to be more stronger than the Fianchetto gambit, and I agree due to some positional reasons. But when it comes to blitz, bullet, and rapid, playing the Mordern gambit can be a great choice to surprise your unprepared opponents, because nobody seems to be giving this gambit much attention. Besides, nobody seems to know our main plans that I have just highlighted on the board when it comes to this Mordern gambit, which makes it to be a surprise weapon. So you see that in the Mordern gambit, we sacrifice only one pawn at the start of the game, though it looks like you are sacrificing 2 pawns. You can see white has 7 pawns against 6 of your pawns. So as dubious as it looks, I think it's just like any other normal gambit where we sacrifice a pawn. Yes, Stockfish doesn't like this cause on top of gambiting a pawn, we also offered to mess up our king side. Now think about it, how can even white take advantage of this king side weakness here? And that's why you see most people playing bishop d3 where you have queen d6. But there is this unusual move that brought up a lot of debate in my last video on the Mordern gambit, queen f3. In case you are behind, let me show you what can happen if white plays the top played move knight to f3. You simply go bishop g4. h3 doesn't help because we know white can take our bishop due to rook takes h1 check. And so instead of attending to this attack, we just develop our queen's knight. They play pawn to c3 and then we go pawn to e5, part of our plan. If DE happens, we take back with our knight, and after the top played move queen e2, we first of all get rid of the king's knight, forcing white to damage his pawn structure, and now black has a superior advantage according to Stockfish, because on the next move there is castle long and the king is safe. So we see that back on move 6, knight to f3 doesn't work well for white because of bishop g4. And so the debate that came up was, what if white plays queen f3? This doesn't seem to favor black at all, which is what this video is all about. So it's more like a response to this queen f3 move. So now let's address this issue. Say after bishop d3 you go queen d6, and then instead of knight to f3, white plays queen to f3. Many of my viewers think this is the main remedy or the anti-Fianchetto gambit, in other words. But you know what? I figured out something here. White's main plan is to stop bishop g4 first, and also intending to go bishop f4 attacking this queen. The king's knight will be developed on e2, then the queen's knight will be developed on c3 preparing for knight b5, and then castle long. This seems to be good for white, but not too fast. What I recommend to do in this position is just to develop your queen's knight. I mean, what else? You are attacking this pawn, right? And again, the top played move is c3 defending this pawn. according to the Lichess database. As you can see from the eval bar, the position is now close to equal, as if the game is just starting. And although Stockfish is childish, it doesn't lie. Position is close to equal due to pawn to e5, our main pawn break, intending to go e4 next. If white takes, well and good, we'll just get rid of that pawn, and maybe this can even be worse after we develop our light squared bishop once again. If pawn to f3, thanks for this weakness, now we can just retreat our light squared bishop. There is no f4 by the way due to knight takes check. If bishop c2 is played, now we can simply castle long and black is better or slightly better. Anyway, going back a few moves, instead of white taking after we play pawn to e5, what if they play queen g3, double attacking the g6 pawn? Well, you already know our plan. Knight g e7. Our king's knight is always developed on e7. The dark squared bishop will be developed on h6. And just like that, our pawn is well defended. In the near future, we'll develop our light squared bishop here. If bishop takes, we'll take back with our knight. The knight is supposed to sit on f5. If knight a3, you just go pawn to s6. Either knight c3 or knight a3, we always respond with s6 to stop knight b5, period. Next, bishop f5 and knight takes f5. Done. Now, there's one line that my 2300 rated opponent played against my Fianchetto Gambit 2 days ago, where I struggled a little bit, though I won at the end. I played f5 in this position, the Fianchetto Gambit, and after my opponent took, I played pawn to d5. Then at this point, my opponent didn't take the second pawn. He played bishop d3. So anticipating this move, I still continued with my usual plan, queen d6, stopping bishop f4. But my opponent here played knight c3. He's a 2300 rated player. What do you expect? He is playing actively, intending to go knight b5 next. And so the move that I missed here was bishop h6. After all, bishop h6 is part of our plan. I played pawn to h6, but let's just see what was going to happen if I played bishop h6. If bishop takes, that would just help me develop my knight, which was doing nothing on g8. If knight b5 is played, an in-between move, I always had queen b6. I don't know how I missed this. And if you think about it, I'm still protecting two of my main pawns. Say f takes g6, h takes g6, and say white tries to deflect my queen from the defense of the c7 pawn, knight takes c7 check to win the rook. Here I was just going to play king d8, and after knight takes a8, first of all, this knight is trapped, and secondly, I'm way ahead in development, which is why the evaluation bar is getting back to equal, besides me being down an exchange, down a pawn. This was just going to be a crazy game. But in the game, I didn't see bishop h6. After my opponent played knight c3, instead of playing bishop h6, I played a6, the usual move, stopping knight b5. And then after f takes g6, h takes g6, it was at this point where my opponent played queen f3. And then this is where I ran out of ideas. I don't have bishop g4 anymore. White is just one move away from taking another free pawn, and this would be very bad. So in the actual game, I couldn't see anything better than bishop f5. One of my viewers suggested the move rook f4, but this was going to be bad for me as there was no any interesting continuation. E.g. after queen takes d5, what was I going to do here? I can't even take because my knight is hanging. Also, my queen is under attack. Let's say knight to f6. Then just like that, I was going to lose another free pawn with no any compensation whatsoever. King d8, then queen f7. There's this coming, by the way. Even if I try to exchange queens, there's just nothing for me here. So rook h4 was not going to be good. Same with rook h5, by the way, because white was just going to play pawn to g4 and I'm gone. There's nothing I can do. White would take the d5 pawn and next take the g6 pawn and I'm done. So after queen f3 here, the other move that I would have played here to maintain the advantage was knight to c6 in place of bishop f5. And the idea is that after queen takes, I was going to go knight b4 attacking this queen. I don't mind this trade happening. First of all, I have an intermediate check, messing up white's pawn on the center at least, and then go c takes d6. So once again, it's like I'm only down by one pawn because now white has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pawns against my 5 pawns. This is one pawn, double isolated pawns, and this is very much holdable at human level. So knight c6 was a secondary move after queen f3, but again after knight c6 there was this idea of bishop f4, which I also considered, but I was prepared to go queen e6 check and say after something like king f1 or whatever, well, I guess I would have played knight b4 again, trying to get rid of this bishop, at least getting rid of one bishop. And with this knight b4 move, by the way, there is no queen takes d5 or knight takes b5 due to this. That's just how tricky this is. If rook e1 is played, I was still going to play queen f7, holding on to this. So this knight b4 move is worth considering, especially in blitz or bullet. Next, I just want to get rid of this bishop and continue playing chess. Say a3, knight takes. If queen takes, I'm going to take the free bishop. So white has to accept this bad pawn structure on the center, and then I go knight to f6, supporting this pawn. Besides, maybe, just maybe, I might even get back into the game like this because I want to castle long, right? Say queen e3 here, castle long if I want. My king is secure at least, and the d5 pawn, and from here I can figure out what to do. I'm not the only one who has weaknesses, by the way. See this misplaced king on f1. So knight c6 is worth considering also after queen f3. Even after queen takes d5, you just go knight b4 to get rid of that light squad bishop, because in the modern gambit, white's light squad bishop seems to be the most active piece. So you just want to get rid of it. So whenever you see queen f3, just think of bishop f5 or knight c6 for the time being, as we are still doing some more research. By the way, forget about pawn to c6. It just doesn't work well. So just bishop f5 and knight c6. So one thing I can guarantee you is that even if white plays queen f3, they will still have to work for their meal. Knight to f3 won't be the savior. It will just lead to a more tactical game where they will continue being up a pawn for the time being. But due to tactics, they will not always keep on finding the best moves. The game will be so tactical, very tactical for both. So that's the whole idea of the Fianchetto Gambit, just to make the game become very tactical. And last word, queen f3 doesn't even seem to be a natural move. No wonder why you don't see people playing queen f3 in the Lichess database. Anyway, so you guys, this is it for today. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Again, I just wanted to address this issue once and for all, but I hope there'll be some more studies coming, so stay tuned. Until next time, bye bye.